Good evening. My name is Larry, and I'm an alcoholic. As I sit here and look out over the audience, I'm grateful and at the same time deeply moved by sitting here in front of the images of Bill and Dr. Bob and Sackville and Travis. You know, this thing that we have is such a great gift. And I was sitting here just listening to Victor and looking at the images of the people that have sacrificed and kept this thing together for us. And you know, it's the spirit of recovery that one really can experience as a result of God and this great program. And that people just really just kind of give their lives so this thing can continue on as it is today. Because had it not been for the people before us, I dare say that any of us would be sitting here. So therefore, it is incumbent upon us to experience the self-same spirit of life and of giving that has been so freely given to us. You know, I'm always humble when I'm asked to talk about, and as we say in AA, we say it's our story, but truly it's AA's story. It is the story of the power that works through people like us, you know, to the next person that comes along. And it's AA's story, because none of us would have anything to say or do had it not been for on the day that we were admitted that we were powerless and that we were alcoholics, you know. So as I think about that, you know, this is a continuation of a love story between God and alcoholics. You know, and the thing is that I started drinking at an early age, and I drank some wine at the age of 6 years old, and I got drunk. And at that particular time, I went from it was about 21 years of drinking that I thought that the reason that I got drunk was because it was a taste of the wine that caused me to lose control. But I found out 21 years later that the reason that I lost control was because of an allergic reaction that I had to wine. And so I groped around in just complete and total ignorance for years and did not know that I was alcoholic. Now, I knew at an early age in my early teens that I had a problem with it because I went through all types of trouble. And I'm not going to go through a drunkalogue, but I will just tell you that, you know, from my early teenage years of smashing cars and my grades dropping in school, and, you know, and my thinking deteriorating, and my, throwing away numerous opportunities to actually, quote unquote, be something in life. And also all the jobs lost and being estranged from my family. You know, I can go through numerous accounts of what we go through when we're in the drink. But the thing is that when you're talking about a disease of this kind, it's also one of just complete and total utter ignorance. And if we think about this, you know, we still have that today. People are completely and totally ignorant of the fact that this thing is a disease, and it's the only disease to tell you that you don't have it. And so that's a double whammy. And, like Victor, my first approach was 1972. And I was in and out of detox facilities for 10 years because I was ignorant to the fact that I was ignorant. And I had went through all types of measures trying to deal with this condition myself, and to no avail, and I was literally brought to my knees looking at prison time because of my capers that I went throughout the years of trying to deal with this on my own volition. I thought that I could handle this my way, and I was also saddled with the fact that I had just a speck of intelligence, and as you can see, I was, a pretty good size in stature. So I used my intellect and I used my brute strength in trying to deal with something that was, I know today, that is completely and totally spiritual. There's no way that any human being can deal with something as powerful as this, and it reminds me of Dr. Carl Jung talking about the formula for alcoholism, and that is spiritua contra spiritum, which it takes a stronger spirit to overcome a weaker spirit. And here I am trying to use every thing at my disposal to deal with a spiritual problem. And see, that's a utter form of ignorance right there. How are you going to deal with something that, first of all, you don't know what it is? And I think that Silkworth was just amazing. I personally believe today that he had a vision just as well as Bill Wilson. There's no way that it can be revealed to a human being the exact nature of the problem, and that man not being an alcoholic that he laid out so succinctly for us years ago, that stands fast today. Here it is, a man that probably, I don't even think he was a teetotaler. And he gave us a foundation to reveal the great darkness that man had been just stumbling around in for over 5,000 years, ever since it was written about in the book of Genesis, and then obviously Proverbs. And he came along in 1930 and gave us something that we could really, really sink our teeth into, that would explain, as our book says, something that we could otherwise couldn't account for. Now, I want you to just consider that, 5,000 years, and it was given to Silkworth. So, me grasping and wrestling with this problem, I was brought to my knees at looking at being locked up in prison for the rest of my life, because every bit of intellect and every bit of brute strength that I had was just completely and totally just annihilated by this disease. And I come to realize that it was my thinking and my drinking. And those two things were the most dearest things to me that I would hold on to. And like Bill Wilson say, it would act like a boomerang and it would come to just cut me to shreds. And I found out that those were the two things that I had to give up, the two things that was dearest to me. And I found myself 10 years later looking at a dilemma, and that was I either had the choice of continuing on to the bitter end and being locked up for the rest of my life, or accepting spiritual help through a complete and total stranger. And I can remember a friend of mine and Joe's, he said this term, and I can really see it today. He said, I needed God in a body. You know, I knew there was a power, but I didn't know that power. You know, it's just like most of us sit in the room and we know of the Queen, but do we actually know her? Can we access her power? Do we have access to her? And I dare say we don't. So knowing of someone and knowing someone is completely, totally different. So I knew of this power, but I couldn't access it on my own. And this guy was speaking volumes in the fact that he had a solution to a problem that I was wrestling with, and that was how to change one's life. And so I listened to him. And he took me through the steps, and as it has been said, you know, I did my assignments. I was completely and totally just subservient, and anything that he told me to do, I would do. Because I had done everything in my power to try to deal with this problem, and the solution that I had garnered up was looking at 103 years in prison. That was the result of my effort. And the guy proceeded to talk to me in a way that was one of the most loving ways, but yet at the same time straightforward and frank and honest appraisal of what I had to do and how he had saw my life and what I needed to do to get it together. And he proceeded to give me a set of directions, and he said that, look, this is your choice. We can either do this or you cannot do it. He says, your life is your life. But if you want to live a different life, then this is what I did. And he asked me to meet him every morning at 7 o'clock. And he used the analogy. He said, now if Bill Gates asked you to meet him every morning at 5 o'clock, and your intention and desire was to become a billionaire like him, you wouldn't ask him why. You'd just be there. You would be there on time, and you would be there listening to what he would have you to say. So therefore, I met him every morning at 7 o'clock. He would give me an assignment, and I would go do my assignment. And if I had any problems, any questions, I would call him. And I did this every morning to the T. Met with this guy every morning, and we would go over my assignment, and he would give me another one, and we would complete it. And when I got to my fourth step, he told me that I needed to write down everything that I could remember. If I couldn't remember it, don't worry about it. And then if I left something out, he would know it. And if I left something out, that I could go ahead and take a walk. You see, I was in a box, whereas I was under this court system where I could not maneuver any way that I wanted to. See, all my maneuvering was out. We would say, you know, in America we use the term, you know, I played every trick up my sleeve that I could. And like I said, the results is I was in this box, whereas I had to accept help. And he told me, he says, if you don't do what I ask you to do, you can take a walk. But however, if you want to do what I ask you to do, if you can tell yourself that you're not going to take another drink, I write the judge and tell him that you've completed successfully, and you can walk away from here a free man. Well, I knew that I couldn't do that, and I knew that if I left, that I was going to parlay that back into a lifetime sentence. I knew I was going to recycle my life again, like I did several times, and I knew that I was going to ultimately end up with the consequences. You see, I'm jumping a little bit here, but because of the the grace and the spirituality of this program and the goodness of God, I've learned today that especially the difference between materialism, physical things, and spiritual things. And today as we go through life, we consider this. When we suffer consequences for something that we've done, there's a lesson to be learned in that. But however, that's us paying for something that we've done. But the greater good and the greater benefit is when we suffer injustice for something that we haven't done, and we come out on the other side. The benefit, I say, is greater, because that is a grace that is given us to endure something that we didn't do. And I think of people that has gone before us, like people like, Gandhi, and more present today, Nelson Mandela. People that suffered injustice for years, and they come out with great spiritual wealth on top of it. And here we are, some of us don't even want to get sober. These are the things that have, from practicing the 12 steps of the program, have given me insight into great treasures and great wealth. And I'm not talking about physical. I'm talking about spiritual treasures that some people never, ever, ever, ever even dream of. But yet, as I sit and I look at the images of the people who have achieved that and passed that along to us, it is something that you just have to experience. Because this is the spirit of recovery. And we're talking about something that is greater than all of us collectively, and also it gives us the ability, as our book says, to match calamity with serenity. No matter what it is that we go through, the little bit of calamity that we go through and that we're taken through is far greater when we go on the other side. And that's the serenity part of it. And these steps, as I work them and I look at my character defects on a daily basis, and God is so gracious that he does not and will not remove them all. But he gives us something to work for on a daily basis, and that's keeping closer to him. And looking at every day as a measuring rod between how I was and how I am today and how I want to be. And the strength that he gives us to accomplish that through him, through the power that we're talking about, is immeasurable. And the other part of it is, as I go through life and making amends for the wrongs that I've done, that is another greater benefit. Because in the past where I had the character defects, the making amends is building character. And here I sat here today, before you all, as just a complete and total, I don't want to say a miracle, because I think that that's a misuse, because what I believe is that if God made us, he can fix us. And that's not a miracle to me. The thing is the miracle is that he gives us enough pain to be willing to allow him to fix us. Because there's a lot of people that will not achieve what we're talking about and why we're sitting here tonight. And that's why also I'm humbled that he chose to give me the spirit of recovery. And that's why I'm obligated to pass it on. just like he gave it to me. So as I sit here again and I talk about this gift of recovery, and also as I go through this life of revelations, you see, the only thing that can reveal something to us is if we walk in the light of the Spirit, and the Spirit will reveal it to us. But we have to keep ourselves ready for these experiences. And at the same time, we have to also keep ourselves humble to pass them along. You see, they're not just for me. If they had held on to what had been given to them and not passed it along to us, we wouldn't be here. So these 12 steps, which are completely spiritual, which are completely unselfish, which is the way of living that I must say that all of us can benefit from. It is a way of life that has been given us just by the mere reason that we professed that we were alcoholic and that we were powerless. You see, I've come to realize that the only real alcoholic is a recovered alcoholic. If you're not recovered, then you're still waffling whether you may or whether you may not be. But a person that is completely recovered, they know who they are, which is one of the greatest gifts of knowing who you are. A lot of people live their whole life and they don't know who they are or what their purpose is. And my purpose is to help my fellow man and to also glorify and talk about this great power which we call the 12 Steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, who I personally call God. You see, this is the story of Alcoholics Anonymous that just so happened to touch a vessel like me to be able to continue it on. And the working of the steps on a daily basis is a process by which my first sponsor used to tell me is a way of kind of scrubbing my soul. See, each day I scrub my soul by helping others, by being fair, straight, and honest as I can, and walking this walk. It gives me a little bit of, as our book says, just a little bit of reprieve. And that little bit of reprieve that I experience through the day, hopefully when I take off the flesh, that I am in that spirit of giving and serenity, that I'm not in one of my character defects. And I'm very much aware of that. So it keeps me aware that at some point in time, this flesh is going to be take off, but I definitely want to be in the spirit of giving and helping. Now, I said all that to say this. Never in my life would I have any type of knowledge or experience of what I'm talking about today. You see, a lot of people is just completely and totally just oblivious when you talk to them about certain aspects in the realm of the spirit. Our book says we're walking hand in hand on the broad highway in the spirit. It says it's all-inclusive, rooming. And as we sit here, I can definitely say through the grace of God that I'm walking hand in hand with the spirit of these fellows back here, because that's what they passed to us. The spirit of gratitude, the spirit of service, the spirit of serenity, the spirit of happiness, the spirit of just completely and totally unselfishness and being, untired, just, we could go on and on. And people, ask, me, well, how long do you have to go to those meetings, And the answer is, I don't know, I haven't quit going yet. So the point is that, I'm just utterly humbled being here again at the Quay. I started here the first time I came here, and I'm just thankful that you all are here for me. Thank you very much.